Marines are the lifeblood of American freedom, serving in some of the harshest situations to secure that freedom across the globe. This is the Lounge with Legends show, celebrating their transformation from battlefield to business. The Lounge with Legends show with Marty the Moac Martinez and James A. Phelps, a.k.a. Spartan 6.
Nick likes the new opening. I'm glad. Thanks, Nick.
You know, you know what? Nick just saved you. I was gonna say something, but you know what? You did a good job. I'll let it go. I'll let you slide.
We already got Casey. All right, so you got an extra commercial in there. I old trigger finger here, but well, we're live. We've got a.
It's good to be stationary today, not in a truck calling in.
I know we got comms with you. It's going to be interesting. So
I know you can't talk smack about me today. I'm here so I can defend myself. Oh.
It's true. It's true, brother. So this is an interesting week we've got right now. It's an interesting week. We've got if you notice, I'm wearing a tie, and we've got James in all black, and basically we're considering this it's a 20th anniversary of September 11th. That's a week of mourning for us because anniversary for me and for James, we were talking about this before the show, is the kind of things we celebrate. And I don't know if I really celebrate September 11th, one of the greatest attacks, worst attacks on our great nation. But it's one of those things where we definitely want to remember, and so we felt we needed to dress in a mourning attire and remember all those Americans that perished that day and the 20 years thereafter. And so we just wanted to take a moment for that. And I know, James, you've got some things to say as well, but I just wanted to kind of open and explain why we're dressed a little different today.
No, I mean, like always, spot on, Marty. Honestly, not really a lot to add. Just sombering to think back, because it seems like yesterday to us, right? I can remember where we were when that happened. We were both actually in the same unit together, so we were serving together, and we were both. We're coming out of the field, and I can remember that changing our lives, everyone's lives, on that day. So I remember like it was yesterday. Yeah.
So James and I put a little thing together, and we just want to, just take a moment and just remember all those that have given our allies, the Americans, everyone who's given something. So just take a moment with us, please. So, I appreciate everybody who's dialed in and letting us pay homage to this. And we've got, if you notice, our colors are a little bit different. We don't have normally in red or black. We have black whenever there's a KIA. We have red for Red Fridays, but today it's green. And we'll explain that later on because we've got a special guest today. He's going to explain. We're going to let him explain why it's green, and I think it's fitting to have our guest today. I'll put him up. Bam! We got Cowboy Jax. It's kind of fitting to have him as our guest this week because it kind of shows every side of those that served and sacrificed on on so many different levels, from the home front, from the deployments, from the first responders, from all sorts of walks of life. And so this week is it's a different week for all of us. So I think, James, without further ado, unless you have anything else, brother. No? Let's bring them on then. Bam, there we go. We got Cowboy Jax.
James and Marty. How are you boys?
Good, good, good.
Good deal.
Having some internet issues today.
Is that James? Okay. Can you talk, Jax?
Yeah, are we back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let James fix himself. I just muted you, James. When you get fixed, you can come back on, brother.
I'm good to hook now. Sorry.
All right. I'll just keep muting you. It'd be like the truck all over again.
I wouldn't know how to act if I wouldn't get the upper left, right hook, upper hook, left hook. Anyway.
That's all right, baby. You get him on the ropes, you'll take him out. It's all good.
Hey, Cowboy Jax, you know who could really, win the fight if there really was one. So I appreciate that, Cowboy Jax.
I don't know. You get old Marty, greased up with some WD-40. He might be able to stick and move a little bit. So
that's a good point. I'll give it to him. You're right.
Hey, thanks for being our legend this week, Cowboy Jax. It's
wow. Yeah.
It's pretty awesome to have you in here. Country. What do we call you? Country music legend, or I don't even know how to describe you. Music.
He told me he was getting me tickets backstage to Jason Aldean. That's why he's a legend to me.
So listen, y'all. These two are so full of crap. If you don't know that by now, I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not giving you no Jason Aldean tickets. If I got you anywhere backstage, it would be George Strait. Come on,
I'll take it.
There you go. George Strait. He used to go to church with us back in San Antonio. Wow. Yeah, he used to go to my church, and his kids used to go to my school, and he went to my college, and so it's it's pretty neat.
George Strait was my very first concert ever. I'd been working on the farm, and I had saved up enough money that me and a school buddy, his mama, took us to the show, and that's when I knew that I was going to be in love with country music. I hadn't made the choice to be a singer at that point. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, there's a reason we call him the king. So. Oh
yeah. Now, like I said, he's so down to earth. I know we're off topic, but he's so down to earth. He, because the kids went to our school and we all went to the same church, he'd come out and he'd be pull up in a Suburban. They'd be in sweatpants, just cheering us on and stuff like that. So it's pretty neat. But
awesome.
Let's talk about you, Jack. When did you come in the military?
Before you start on that, what's that thing on your lapel? What's that? Is it a chicken? What is that thing on there? That's on your...
No, that's the 101st Airborne Division. Yeah, the number one Airborne Division, number one, not 82nd, 101st.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
You got to tread lightly because I know we said we weren't going to call you, ask you to sing, but James is ready to sing. He's going to have a sing-off with you.
Oh, okay. All right.
He was going to sing
I'm ready to lose.
Division songs. So I don't know if you remember the 101st Division song.
Oh, man, that's been so long ago.
We'll let him talk about why he came in first, and then maybe before the commercial break or after the commercial break, I'll do my performance of the 82nd song, and then we'll go and exchange blows vocally.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. I see what's going on here. Saddle up, boys.
Like I said, I don't even perform my kazoo live, so y'all ain't doing nothing for me.
I'll sing if Marty sings. How about that?
I guess we ain't singing then. Have you heard Marty sing?
No, I've not.
It's pretty amazing. So Cowboy Jax, when did you come in the military?
Yes, sir. Well, so little backstory on me that kind of sets the context of why I joined the Army. I went to 13 different elementary schools, and
There's usually only 6 grades.
lived in South Georgia, and lived in some pretty rough neighborhoods. And when I was about 10 years old, I got into a fight because my stepdad would abuse me at home. And so I'd go to school and take it out on the kids at school because they'd call me honky and cracker and all this fun stuff. And I pushed this kid, and I accidentally fractured his skull. And they're going to put me in a boys' home. And my nanny, which is what I call my grandmother, my mama called her and said, "Hey, Jax is in pretty big trouble down here. We need to get him out of the state." And she came down in the next 24 hours, got me out of there, took me back to where she lived, which was like Mayberry, small town in Lagodi, Indiana. And that's when they found out the abuse was going on and stuff like that. And so fast forward one more stint, I lived with my mama, and there was some more tumultuous things that went on, like was in foster care for a little bit, got jumped by 5 guys, and my nanny said, "Okay, I've had enough." So from the 8th grade of school on, I lived with her. Well, growing up in the ghetto and developing ghetto mentality and all that stuff, I fell into selling drugs. Even though I was living in Mayberry, I was still all homie G gangster kind of thing and all that deal. And ended up getting a girl pregnant, and was a father my senior year, and working a full-time job at the same time, pretty much, not going anywhere in my life. We broke up, which was inevitable, obviously, because I didn't have any parents. I'd been an adult since I was 10 years old, so didn't really have a lot of people skills in that regard. And fell hard that summer, pretty hard, drinking pretty heavy. The heartache hit me pretty hard. And my papaw, who is also a United States Army veteran, served in the Korean War, made it to Master Sergeant. He saw the writing on the wall. And so one day he said, "Get in the truck." And you just never told Jack Duvall no. That's just the way it was. And, he took me down to the recruiting station, and I signed up, and I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I want to go 100%. So on the summer of my 18th birthday, I think it was, I signed it up for the United States Army and was going to ship out to Fort Benning, Georgia.
Wow.
And that's how it started.
What year was that?
97, 98 time frame.
Okay. All right. Wow. So that is quite the
Still
story.
before Marty's time. Marty's the old guy in the room, so it's still before. We're still babies. Cowboy Jax.
After my time. Yeah. So that so you came in, and then so you were enlisted, and you were at Fort Benning, and you went to what unit then? Is that when you went to the 101st?
So once I got the opportunity to go to Fort Benning, Georgia, and graduate from infantry, basic and AIT, the next opportunity that came along for me at that time was called the Green to Gold program. And so I left active duty service, started out at Vincennes University, and then transferred to Indiana State University. And I was double majored at Indiana State University in philosophy and military science. As you know, military science is what you have to take when you're pursuing an officer candidacy and all that. And September 11th happened.
Right.
And y'all was talking about where you was and what was going on and all that kind of thing. And I remember being woke up by my girlfriend at the time, and there's a little 16-inch television, and I looked over at the TV, and by that time they were playing the planes hitting the building over and over again. And I just remember this moment of surrealism I think I was attached to a National Guard or a reserve unit or something like that, and, the buzz around everywhere. You guys know this because you were already in, but like on the, at that time, the civilian side of the house, I don't call them civilians anymore. I call them community neighbors. We'll get into that later. But the buzz was, this was our World War III. This was going to be our Pearl Harbor. We had no idea. They had 10 targets, lined up that they were sending all these units to. People were doing all the evac stuff on ground zero and everything else. And I had two brothers that were estranged from me. One I lost when he was 15. He was put into an institution because there was a lot of issues with my mother. And she had basically abandoned him. My aunt couldn't sustain taking care of her and her kids, so he finished out his life in an institution. And then my other brother was taken from our family when he was 4 because my mother was bipolar number 2, and he was locked inside a station, VW station wagon bug thing, and she thought he was Michael the Archangel. And so I had a weird childhood because when I was little, I was taking care of these kids, changing their diapers and all that stuff. But then when I went to live with my nanny, by default, I kind of became an only child, but still had the remnants of being that big brother. And so in my mind, even though I didn't have a relationship with either one of my brothers, y'all saw that movie, Saving Private Ryan, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So in that movie, for the viewers that may not have seen it, basically what happens is this guy's brother, Private Ryan, all of his brothers are KIA, which gets him a ticket home because he's the last living male for the family. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, if I leave going to school to be a lawyer and I go back to active duty, number one, I'm fulfilling my obligation as an infantry soldier, which is why I joined in the first place. But secondly, if I go, then my other brothers, there's a good chance that they won't have to go. And I'll be damned if we all 3 didn't serve, and then they ended up going down range and became combat veterans. And because of what happened to me at Fort Campbell when I got down range, I set the bench for the big game.
Right.
And yeah.
So you mentioned your what'd you call me? Your granddad, your pappy?
My papaw.
Your papaw, sorry.
That's all good.
Jack Duvall, right? How much
Yes,
of your success today do you attribute when you look back to hop up in that pickup truck and driving down? Do you attribute to that day, or was it just that was just tough love, or
it saved my life, Marty. Not having a dad growing up. I met my dad the first time when I was 13. Pretty much well being adult since I was 10 years old. I always used to like to say when I do motivational speaking and talk to kids and stuff at risk, that first 2 weeks at Fort Benning, Georgia, sweat every bit of bad decisions and dope and alcohol I'd ever done in my whole entire life in those first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And learning the Army values, which is how I live my lifestyle and my business philosophy now, and for those of you that don't know them, it's leadership, right? And it's an acronym for loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And I have taken each one of those mantles and as a United States veteran, continued to figure out how to applicate that as my compass to continuously be my North Star when I find myself getting off track. So that's what it did for me.
No, that's brilliant. I love that. That by joining, it sounds like the military helped fulfill or provide you not only purpose, but provide you a moral compass. If that's what it's something like that.
Without a doubt.
And so, because it sounds up until this point, you had a pretty rough track, a pretty tough bout in life. Did this also? Where did you get the resiliency from? Because Jax, it sounds like you kind of had a rough life, and a lot of what we talk about here is resiliency. You had this before the military because, like you said, you were a young man changing diapers and looking at other people. So where did this come from?
You know, I attribute a lot of it to I had two strong Kentuckians as the base of our bloodline. You know, my granddad had an 8th grade education, my papaw, and he ended up in the coal mining industry. You know, he had went to Korean War and served over there for 4 years. Like, I know we have deployments, but 4 years, like he was over there for so long that he actually sent a letter home to my nanny at the time and said, "This is my girlfriend in Korea because I don't think I'm ever coming home." You know, it wasn't like social media and all that stuff nowadays. So, you know, from him, and then of course my nanny, you know, she had an amazing backbone because they got a divorce and she had to figure out how to live on her own in a 2-story house out in the middle of the country. So she traded in her pumps and dress, you know, like the 1950s, making breakfast, lunch, and dinner in full, you know, regalia, to jeans and boots and learning how to chop wood and all that other stuff. So, you know, I attribute a lot of that resilience to that DNA, to be honest with you.
Part of that country strong.
You said a buzzword to me. You said Kentucky. Where in Kentucky?
Muhlenberg County.
Nice. You know, I'm from the South too, but I look like my mother. My dad and everyone is from Louisville, Kentucky. Nick Phelps, he always watches, and then Roy Phelps are all from Kentucky. So I must agree with you on the blood of the Kentuckians, since I have Kentucky blood in me.
That's right.
Yeah, that's good stuff. My grandmother was from Lost Creek, and then you know, my grandfather, like I said, was toward the Louisville area, and then my uncle, they're all in Taylorsville, I think right now is where we were, or Shelbyville and one. I get confused. I actually just went to Kentucky last week, so anyway.
Yeah, man, I spent a little time homeless outside of Louisville. We might get into that a little bit later, but yeah, man, I think that's a great question, Marty, because resilience, I think, is something that isn't a choice, right? Resilience is where you're faced with something and you make the decision after you're faced with it. You don't just step out and say, "I'm going to be resilient," or you don't really step out and know if you're resilient. You got to be faced with some things, and you know, a lot of that tumultuous. I mean, my principal said, "You'll be dead or in prison by the time that you're 25." When I was 16 years old. So,
see,
yes, we proved him wrong.
Thank God. One of the things that I would maybe counter is that you either step into it and you find what you're worth in a way, or we've talked about on the show before, what I'm doing with my daughter and eventually with my son when he's older is I'm starting it now. I'm building it in there, building the mentality of hunting the good stuff. And so every time I pick up my daughter, I ask, "What's one thing you didn't like about today?" "Well, I didn't like that, whatever." "Okay, cool. Get it out. It's part of that. Get mad, get over it." "Okay, now tell me 2 awesome things that happened." So that way you get mad, get over it, but then you hunt the good stuff. You find that, so you're building in that positive mental attitude and that stuff. So if you start that young and you start looking at that, I think there's another way to do that. So that way,
I love that. I love that counter for sure, because, you know, a lot of people say those kinds of things. And one of the things that I like to say to people when they say resilience, or, you know, being called a hero, or like all this other kind of stuff, a legend, all these different kind of things, is that the reality of it is, and this is important for the listeners, is that when you're going through it, you don't really know any different.
Right.
It's not until you get out of it and you reflect on it, whether you're a mom or a dad or a business leader, or, you know, something with, you know, and some of the things that I've been blessed and been through over 100 years of counseling, or 100 hours of counseling, thanks to the VA, that you realize, wow, like that was really messed up. Like that was horrible, you know, but it's made me a better dad, you know. Because I look at my parents as a reflection of what not to do, right? So yeah, it pays off either way. But another thing that I really love that I learned from the Army that I think is important to mention is the after action review. An AAR with the sustain and improve was so much better versus what'd you do right, what'd you do wrong. And now that my son's 11, he wants to go to MIT. It's hard for me because he's a nerd, and I wasn't a nerd. I was a street kid, and so he's learning how to play basketball, and
Right.
we're doing all these kind of things together. And but the one thing that I've wanted to maintain with him is understanding that life isn't so much about right or wrong versus sustain and improve. And I think that the Army taught me that, and I'm very proud of that.
No, that's awesome. Hey, you touched briefly about not being able to go to the big game, right? The big dance.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What happened there, if you don't mind?
No, I was in a combat training exercise. As you guys know, 90% of the wars are now fought in urban terrain. They're not like we were traditionally trained, like y'all were traditionally trained in trench warfare. And so the 101st Airborne Division Air Assault has one of the great, an amazing mount facility. I don't want to go into a lot of the details of it because I just don't want people to know whatever supposed to be known. But we were doing a mount exercise, and the idea behind it was we were to come in through the window. It's a concrete structure. You guys know the deal. The lights are all out, just like you're in real world combat, except for muzzle flash. And I went to go up a ladder, and NVG is next to 0 as you're going up this thing, and there was a guy above me that hadn't secured his saw ammo, and what had happened is that saw ammo got loose, and it came down and it hit me in the head. And y'all know how back in the day, I don't know, because I had the old turtle head, I didn't have this high speed Kevlar stuff that they got now and you ops guys and rangers got, but that NVG would always tilt your head back. So part of my head was exposed, and when it hit me, it was like getting hit by a freight train. And so I let go of the ladder, and when I did, I fell backwards and I landed on my head. So that K-pop was probably the only thing that saved my life. But I don't know if I went unconscious or not, but I heard the ringing in my ears like I had gone unconscious. Standard procedure, doc grabs me by LBV, puts me against the wall for casualty assessment later, because they got to keep the hole open to keep, doing business. And later on, when the lights came on and they assessed me, I had, blood coming down my face and, was rocked pretty good. So they took me back to the field trains, cleaned it up, gorilla glued it shut, and that was the end of it.
Wow.
And next day at PT, first time ever in my whole military career, I went to take off for a run. And when I did, the road started doing this shit. And I fell out and I threw up. And EIB was right around the corner, so we were getting geared up for that. I went from being a sharpshooter to not even be able to qualify with a weapon. And I developed an interim tremor, and that was all she wrote. If you can't fight, you can't be in. If you can't shoot, no matter what your job is, you can't be in. And I'll be honest with you, my chain of command did not handle it the way that they should have. They were very overzealous in their position, and just like in any other career field, you got to navigate individuals like that sometimes. So we don't have to deep dive into that, but the bottom line was he was building a counseling packet to drum me out on a bad conduct discharge when I was a good soldier. My captain, my former company commander, and I always hope that he's listening to this because his name's Captain Stanton. And Captain Stanton was the one that stepped in and said, look, you're not going to drum this soldier out on a bad conduct discharge. I mean, they had me living in a broom closet, Marty, and they'd parade me out in my PTs every day as a shitbag in front of, pardon my language, to all the different soldiers. I only say that part of it because I want people to understand, when you found out what I did later in my life, why this was so significant of the way that I was treated. Because you would think that when someone got out, they'd be like, I'm done. I don't want to hear it, nothing like that. But the story takes, another turn through that resilience thing that you were talking about later on.
Yeah. I think that's a great segue to cut to commercial, and then we've got a special treat for everybody. Cowboy Jax isn't going to perform live, but we're gonna give a special treat for everybody, and then we're gonna find out about why everything's green today. All right, so let's cut to commercial real quick, and we'll be back in about a couple of minutes. Stay with us, y'all.
You're watching the Lounge with Legends TV show with your hosts, Marty Martinez and James A. Phelps.
All right, so we're gonna show this real quick. It's Jack's song, "Leave a Light On," and then we're gonna run it, and then after that, we're gonna have Jax explain the meaning behind it. Okay, Jax?
Sure, that'd be great.
All right. Because I really enjoy this song, so we're gonna run this.
Well, I appreciate that.
You heard it here first on Screaming Eagle Radio. Disabled veteran Jax Young with "Leave a Light On." Ain't much I can say, even less I can do, but I want you to know, so dang proud of you. I should have said it then, but the words wouldn't come out. Now I know what I'm gonna do. Gonna leave a light on till you get back home. Beacon shining in the dark, guiding you back to my heart, where there's a light on, even though you're gone. Keeping the faith, you get back to where you belong. Gonna leave a light on, baby, it's rough having this kind of love, feeling deep inside, wraps your soul up tight. All pain for you is all I can do, but at night my hope was bright. Leave a light on till you get back home. Beacon shining in the dark, guiding you back to my heart, where there's a light on, even though you're gone. Keeping the faith, you get back to where you belong. Don't leave a light on. And I see all of them one by one come on. I reminded them none of us are alone. We all want our soldiers home. Where there's a light on, even though you're gone. Keeping the faith, you come back to where you belong. Till you come home, gonna leave a light on. Let it shine, shine. This little light
All right. Now I really like that. I know you had said before the show we don't have to show the whole thing, but
yeah, you can feel the emotion through there. You know, you can
you really
actually
can.
sense it through the video and the actual coming home part. So I mean, yeah, well done. Well, you've already heard it 100 times, I'm sure, but well done with that.
Well, I appreciate that very much. You know, the idea behind it was, you know, when Save Homefront came into fruition, the reason why it came into fruition is I told you I was homeless outside of Louisville for a while, and before that, I had ended up behind the glass doors over in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, at the VA on the 7th floor there, or 6th floor, I'm not sure, because I felt like I was going to take my life. I've kind of reached the end of that road of that false bravado and all that different kind of stuff. But that's a conversation for another time. The reality is that I wasn't in there with guys that I thought were veterans, even though I was a veteran. Like, I didn't even consider myself to be a veteran. So in my mind, a veteran was like my papa or somebody that hung out at the American Legion or a Vietnam veteran and all that whole kind of thing, you know. And so I get in there, and the guys to my left and right are kids, you know, 18, 19 years old, and guys my age that were, you know, in their 30s and early 40s at the time. And there was just a sense of loss there. And when I say lost, I mean just no accountability of what would come next. You know, and some of them had this process of, you know, they'd come here, they'd go to rehab, then they get back out on the streets, they'd get mixed up again, they'd come back, and that's how they kept, you know, 3 hots in a cot and all that whole kind of thing. And so I realized that at that time, this is several years ago, 2016-ish time frame, that the narrative needed to change. And so even I got out of the VA, I was homeless at the time. Somebody contacted me and said, hey, you know, you still got that nonprofit idea that you're working on, and I'm living in a Serve Pro garage. And I'm like, yeah, I sure do. You know, fake it till you make it, baby. Yeah. And so that kind of was the catalyst to come back to Nashville and open the doors of 2016 for Save Homefront. And then, you know, from that, I was like, you know, I spent almost 20 years in entertainment, you know, in front of and behind the scenes. And so I was like, how can I capture the attention of the general public in a way that it doesn't feel like I'm pointing my finger at them and preaching at them? You know, how can I get them? You know, and Johnny Cash said to Merle Haggard one time, just do what you know, write what you know. And so I was like, okay, I know music. And so I found this social media campaign that Walmart did, where you could put a green light bulb. I've got 2 of them right out front of my house here, as a symbolism, as a go to come back into communities for veterans. And from that, I was like, I looked at what they did and everything, and in my mind, I was like, man, can you imagine if we put a song behind this? You know, actually drove this like in a way where it was beyond just our narrative, but how other people could connect. And so that idea turned into a song called Leave a Light On, which was produced by Johnny Neal from the Allman Brothers, #1 songwriter. I think you know who the Allman Brothers are. And we co-wrote that with Johnny Neal, myself, and Curtis Boone. And then Sailor Brothers Entertainment was the one that shot it. And then the whole town of Petoskey, Michigan was just absolutely amazing. And so the ending result was, let's get this done, let's get it to Walmart, and then this is how we'll get donations for Safe Homefront. Because I always, even though I needed to follow nonprofit standards, I always wanted to run Safe Homefront like a business would be ran, not from the benevolent standpoint. So it was all about reciprocal value for me. So you give us a donation, we give you a light bulb. And you know, unfortunately, things don't always work out the way that you want them to. And worked that campaign, you know, for a little bit. Some of the infrastructure with different individuals kind of, you know, caused it to sort of fall apart, and we're still working on it. So if you know anyone connected to Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, you know, if you're watching this, we'd love to connect, because we think this is a great way to give to SHF, but it's also an even better way to create a cultural shift in our community.
Yeah. And you can see on the bottom, we've got the website there. And then I just posted on YouTube and Facebook the link to SHF website. I always mess this up. I apologize.
It's all good, brother.
Tongue twister for me. But they're the links right there. So please go support it. It's a worthwhile organization. We've been talking to Jax about this on how to support one another. Because it really is. And if you watch the video, you really get that true meaning of what it is. And that's why we changed up today with our green banners, and everything's green, and it's not even March. So you know, there's special meaning there. So appreciate it.
Well, what's amazing about this, and this is why, you know, I love my approach to the veteran community. You know, there's over 40,000 veterans charities out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of people have PTSD covered. I think a lot of people have homelessness covered, disabled veterans covered. You know, SHF wants to be those broad strokes in the public relations of showing, you know, extraordinary things in life after the uniform, so people can understand that they are connecting to veterans every day. Just because you're not a combat veteran doesn't mean that your service didn't matter. And just because you're a community neighbor doesn't mean that you're a secondary citizen. Because you pay your taxes, it's why we have a military. Because I'm able to go to the VA, all those different kinds of things. So that relationship is so important. And that brings me to my next point, which is Michael Cameron Dempsey that you saw at the end of that. Well, he was not in the military, but he served with the UN overseas. And unfortunately, that young man took his life. And his family's foundation was the one that sponsored that video to be made. And it was amazing because I talked to his dad, Jack, and I said, this is an opportunity for y'all to take the most tragic thing that has ever happened in your family to date and turn it into a positive message for everyone out there. So it transcends just a green light for veterans to come home, and it creates that connection of green and growth and hope and all, you know, all these great things that can be beneficial to anybody, whether you ever wore the uniform or not. And the last piece on that was, if y'all saw the protagonist, or what we call the hero, you know, in the movie and in filmmaking and video making world, was a woman, right? The man was supporting, you know, his woman. And so I'm engaged to a United States Army veteran who's an amazing woman, Linda Sullivan. And, you know, when we go out and stuff, and this is another part of that cultural shift that we're talking about that SHF does, we are just as invested in showing every color, every religion, every sex as a United States veteran, because they'll be like, you know, we'll see if they have a veteran discount, and I'm the first person they look at, and I'm like, well, she's a U.S. veteran too, right? You know, and so that's where we're a little bit different, and we use professional entertainment to be able to bring all that together, which has worked well.
The star, Cowboy Jax, you get a star with your fiance in your video. That's your fiance. I'm sorry. That's your fiance in the video.
No, that's Miss Veteran America. That's before I knew my fiance.
That was your fiance.
No, and trust me, James, I've caught tons of shit because of that too. So all y'all out there making a music video, make sure that you get your fiance or your wife in there. That's what I'm telling you right now. Because even if she doesn't exist right now, just pretend that she's gonna exist and go ahead and make sure that, you know, you're putting her imaginary self in that video, because if not, there'll be some questions.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm posting in the link right now. In the comment, there's at the last one of the last, what was it, the Fort Bragg event with Veterans Grow America. We had this lady, was it Lady Vet, and they have the same mission, which is recognizing, you know, they serve too. And so, because my wife, you know, a lot of y'all know, I'm an active duty spouse now. She's both a veterinarian and a vet. So I'm her dependent. I'm her spouse. And so I just put it in there. It's Lady Vet USA. And so it's in there, and it's because you're absolutely right. It's changing that narrative. But you mentioned twice now about community partner, community neighbors.
Yes, sir.
As opposed to civilians.
Yes, sir.
And I think some other people call them civ divs and civilians. And so why the differentiator?
Well, I think that's a great question, Marty. The biggest reason for the differentiator is because you think what you say, right? And so I'm not under a government contract anymore. Mm-hmm. And if I'm going to have a connection to somebody that is a non-veteran, I don't need to call them a civilian, you know, because they're not a civilian. They are my community neighbor. And so we sort of coined that phrase, or in the process of trademarking that phrase, because it gives that identity to a non-veteran person. Instead of saying, oh, those who serve and those who didn't serve, we say community neighbor because they continue to support. You know, the other thing that we're working really hard to get away from, that you even see in our own veteran culture, is thank you for your service. And the biggest reason that we want to get away from thank you for your service is because thank you for your service is you thanking me for something that you don't know what you're thanking me for. So it can come across as uncomfortable or disingenuous, versus if you say, I appreciate your service. Well, that's all about you and your sentiment. I really don't have a dog in that fight, right? I don't know what you appreciate, what you don't appreciate. And so it's just those subtle changes, like community neighbor, and I appreciate you, and you know, this person's a veteran and that person's a veteran. It provides us the opportunity to start to make that cultural shift, which once that cultural shift starts to happen, that provides us to have a more unified economy where veterans have all the opportunities, not based off of biased or stereotypes.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's a subtle differences. Like when people used to ask me what I do when I was active duty, I never said I was in the Army. I always said I serve in your Army. I serve in your military, because it is, again, community partners. If it wasn't for you, if it's not for you paying your taxes, I don't get a paycheck. I don't get the equipment. Right. I don't get whatever it is. Therefore, I serve in your military. And it's a reminder that we are public servants. We are in your military. And so
we do a thing. Yeah, we do a thing that's called the SHF Honors. And basically what it is it's the Grammys meets the Oscars, except it's recognition awards for veterans and community neighbors. And I had this woman come up to me, and I'm sure y'all have heard this story before if you've listened or watched anything that I've done, but it's a story that resonated with me and really let me know that I was on the right track. She said, you know, I'm a fluent business owner in the community, and I just want to thank you so much for inviting me to this event this evening. And I said, well, ma'am, you're very much welcome and appreciated. I hope you had a good time. And she said, normally I don't come to these kind of things. And I said, well, that's a shame. I said, why is that? She goes, because often I feel like a secondary citizen. There's a lot of military infusion into these kinds of things, and there's a lot of jargon and things that, you know, I don't understand. And so I just feel like I'm not worthy of being there. And that's what resonated with me about the SHF Honors when it came to her, was because she felt like she mattered and she felt like she was important. So at the end of the day, no matter what our mission focus is, you have to find a way to create that connection, not that transition. You're not a robot, not that integration. You know, you're not some foreign dignitary that's making your way into a new community. The next chapter of your life, how you're writing the next chapter of your life, you know?
No, absolutely. And it's we call it a transformation because there is some change that's going to happen in your brain housing group. Stop saying 1300. It's 1 p.m. now. As I was saying even before the call, I got to hit the head. No,
Yeah. Well, I think you may have got me on that one, dude, because I don't know if I'll ever lose military time. But hey, there you go. I call myself on my own bullshit. But keep going, brother. I'm listening.
But there is that, and as we get out of the military is going to do the transition part of it because it's a factory line, it's an assembly. But then organizations like Safe Homefront, the Three Rangers Foundations, which we're a partner of, and working with Vets to PM, and these organizations where James and I are now working to be partners with, that gets to the transformation. And by helping veterans transform and evolve and get ready for to be a community partner, that I think
community neighbor.
Sorry,
yeah, that's fine.
Is going to decrease the suicide rates because now you don't feel like you're ostracized. It gives you that feeling of belonging, of community, and you're not like us versus them.
I talk about it all the time. It's about being proactive. I'm a suicide survivor, and I can tell you that one word that really gets under my skin is suicide prevention, because it puts a lot of pressure on people that have dealt with people that have committed suicide, their loved ones who have committed suicide, and puts a sense of responsibility on them, because if suicide is preventable, then that means I could have helped prevent. And that's not the truth. The truth is, if someone is dedicated to wanting to take their life, whether you impede that process or not, they're going to find a way. Suicide is the end of the line. We need to get proactive and get anxiety education. Anxiety education is preventative maintenance, because you can talk to people about having anxiety. You can talk to people about what you need in the room, what you don't need in the room, how you're able to have your conversations in terms of when your anxiety is getting heightened and having a plan put together for that. Right. So that's another thing of one of those subtle differences that really, gets under my skin. And I love that you're talking about being proactive versus reactive. That makes all the difference in any situation.
Yeah. Hey, we're getting to the top of the hour, Cowboy Jax. So I'd love to have this conversation even longer. We're gonna have you back on the show.
Be an honor.
It's time to ask the question, because you have served and sacrificed and gave so much to our country and giving so much back to our country now. So what does freedom mean to you?
You asked me that question earlier, and Marty, there's a lot of things that freedom means to me, but I think one of the things that's most prevalent that everyone needs to understand and is most relevant right now, the United States was formed so you could live under an ability and an obligation to disagree. Iron sharpens iron. And when you disagree with someone or you don't see the same way they do, it gives the ability for growth to be able to come out of that. That's where that phrase comes from, iron sharpens iron, because it has to be just as strong. And I think when you think of patriotism and when you think of freedom, that is exactly what freedom enables you to be able to do. So you can if you want to, because that's what a part of what freedom is. But in my experience, spending time with people and growing with people that don't necessarily see the way that you do, and if they can give a little and you can give a little, then that's how new ideas and growth can be able to happen. So it's an obligation to disagree with each other to make our country better.
It's awesome. I love it. Having to continue the discourse, and it's okay to agree to disagree, but continue the discourse. We're actually writing right now in a new book, the ancient art of listening, because we're too quick to report. But
absolutely.
I really.
What do you think? You think those old boys got together back in the day with as intelligent and the level of probably some of the arrogance in the room, and they just whipped out that Bill of Rights, and that they probably disagreed for 20 days on We the People alone. They're like, I could just see all of them in there being like, no, let's not call us people. Let's call us natives. No, let's not call us natives. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was the one thing for me in this country that made America strong and gave us the ability to have the grit. Our culture and our economy having the ability to be diverse and unified. Diverse and unified is what enables us to be able to beat the competition, because they're all unified under the same thing. Look at it. Socialism, communism, dictatorships, it's all one entity. This was the one place where you could flourish in that diversity, right? That's what made the economy so strong and the culture so strong.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have to have you on, because I know you and Jam are going to have a sing-off next time. So
I had my vocal cords ready. I was ready to go.
I appreciate you being our legend this week, Cowboy Jax. Thank you.
Hey, y'all make it. I appreciate you much, and y'all make sure that you tune in with the Lounge with Legends, because these guys are making it happen one legend at a time. Appreciate you, boys.
Thank you, sir. James.
Saved by the time, man. I had my voice ready. It was warmed up. I wanted to sing, man.
Oh, man. Hey, great episode. Really appreciate it. One of the things I would ask everybody out there is, this is a hard week with everything going on with Afghanistan. A lot of people questioning, was it worth it? The 20th anniversary of September 11th and what's going on. And reach out to your battle buddy, reach out to your friends, have a discussion. And one of the things we ask people is help us get the word out, because this channel is only possible through the word of mouth. And it really, we're just trying to help people with that. So send them over to the YouTube channel, like, subscribe, because that's really what this is about, is just trying to help our battle buddies when having great guests like Cowboy Jax on there and his organization. And so, yeah. What do you got, James? Sorry.
I'm just going to finish with Airborne.
All right. We'll see you next week. We've got another great guest. We've got Jennifer. She's going to have project management. She's got a firm on there. It's going to be amazing. She's I'm excited to have her on. And then we've got some other amazing guests this month. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Be legendary.
You've been watching the Lounge with Legends show on E360 TV, countering the narrative that veterans are all broken misfit toys. Veterans are the lifeblood of American freedom. Serving in harsh situations, coupled with their training, have forged them into some of the most resilient and capable leaders in the world. And that's where we come in, celebrating the success stories, taking you on a journey of transformation from military to business. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back soon. But find us on Facebook at Lounge with Legend or at JTF214. Till next time.